Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we're back here today with another edition of Against the Odds. This week, we are playing Retreats in Standard. So on last week's poll, Retreats was the clear-cut winner, getting 28% of the vote. It beat out Eater of Days in Modern, which came in second, Dragon Tempest for Standard, which came in third. So those two will be on our next ballot, returning for another shot at glory. Then fourth and fifth, we had fourth was Fluctuator, our legacy option, so it's kind of exciting to see legacy get themselves out of the bottom of the bracket for a minute. So fourth place is actually a pretty good finish for legacy. And then fifth place, Underworld Dreams in Modern, not all that popular. So Fluctuator and Underworld Dreams are out of here. We'll have Dragon Tempest and Eater of Days back on our next ballot, and Retreats for Standard are our videos for this week, and I have to say, the deck turned out pretty sweet. I'm pretty happy with it. So, of course, if we're playing a Retreats deck, the most important piece are the Retreats themselves. So, Retreats are this cycle of enchantments that all of them have landfall, and all of them have two options. So, whenever land enters the battlefield under our control, we get to choose one of two things, and we have a whopping 16 different Retreats in our deck. We have the full four of the blue, black, green, and white retreat. So let's talk about these quickly and how these work. So since we're a retreat deck, we are winning the game with retreats. That is how we are going to win. Also, we have a little flexibility to win with other land-related cards, but it's not like we're just playing retreats and then going to win with Siege Rhinos. We're going to win with retreats. That is our goal this week because we're a retreat deck. So, how do we go about doing this? Well, obviously, we want to make our land drops so we can trigger our retreats. So we have Retreat to Coral Helm, the blue one. So it costs 2 and a blue. It's an enchantment. It has landfall. When a land enters the battlefield, we get to choose one. We can either tap or untap target creature, or we get to scry one. So sometimes the tap or untap is really relevant, especially in conjunction with fetch lands. We can make a land drop on our opponent's turn and tap down an attacker to help keep us alive. But a lot of times we're using Retreat to Coral Helm just to scry every turn, almost like a Thassa, god of the sea. It's a way we can make sure that we are finding more action, and the importance of this will become more apparent as we go through the rest of the deck, because we are playing a ton of lands in this deck to make sure we can trigger our retreats. So being able to scry every turn and hit a land when we want it and find more action when we want it is really important. So that's the main goal of Retreat to Coral Helm. Retreat to Hagra is one of our finishers. So it's 2 and a black, also an enchantment, also has landfall. We get to choose either target creature gets +1/+0 and gains Death Touch. I don't think we will pick this option very often, but the big one is whenever land enters the battlefield, each opponent loses a life and we gain 1 life. So you basically drain for 1. So the sweet thing about Retreat to Hagra is it means if we can have 20 lands enter the battlefield over the course of the game, we can win the game. We will deal 20 damage, and we're also gaining life at the same time, which helps keep us alive where we're trying to get multiple retreats on the battlefield to win. Retreat to Kazandu. This is another one where we usually only pick one option. You can either put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or gain 2 life. Retreat to Kazandu is pretty much always gain 2 life. It's another way, combined with the Retreat to Hagra, and sometimes the tapping ability from Retreat to Coral Helm, that we can just keep ourselves alive while we keep making our land drops and eventually drain our opponent out with the Retreat to Hagra. Or, the other way we can win is by making 1/1 core ally tokens, which is one of the options on Retreat to Emeria, the white retreat. So Retreat to Emeria is 3 and a white, enchantment, landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield, we either make a 1/1 white core ally token, or creatures you control get +1/+0. So mostly the white retreat works with itself. We make the tokens in the early game, and then in the late game, we pump up those tokens and attack. So really our only very realistic way of winning is some combination of draining our opponent with Retreat to Hagra and making tokens and then pumping them with Retreat to Emeria. So there are our retreats, 16 in total. Obviously, if we're playing a retreat deck, we are going to want some lands to trigger them. And we have a total of 33 lands in the deck. So we are an extremely land-heavy deck. That is part of the reason why it's so important that we have the retreat to Coralhelm to scry, as I mentioned before. So first off, we have 12 fetch lands. We have a single Bloodstained Mire, 4 Flooded Strand, 4 Polluted Delta, and 3 Windswept Heath. So the benefit of the fetch lands is each fetch land triggers each retreat that we have on the battlefield twice. So we get one landfall trigger when the fetch land enters the battlefield, then another one when the land we fetch out enters the battlefield. For example, retreat to Hagra all of a sudden drains for 2. Retreat to Kazandu gains us 4 life. Retreat to Emiria makes 2 creatures. So we just double the benefit of our landfall triggers by playing these fetch lands. So if we got fetch lands, we're going to need things to fetch, right? So what are we fetching? Well, we have a few slow lands from Battle for Zendikar, 2 Canopy Vista, 1 Prairie Stream, 1 Smoldering Marsh, 2 Sunken Hollow. So that is 6 fetchable lands. And then we got a bunch of basic lands as well. 2 forests, 2 islands, 2 plains, and 3 swamps. As you will see, when we get to the rest of our non-land cards, our deck is a little bit weighted towards black cards. That's why we have more swamps. So altogether, that gives us 15 fetchable lands. So it works out, we usually always will have something to fetch. And that's part of the reasons why we're playing so many lands in this deck is we want to play a lot of fetch lands to get the double triggers for our retreats, but then to make that plan work, we always have to have something to fetch with those lands, which means playing 20 or 24 lands just wasn't going to do it in this deck if our plan is to win with retreats. Of course, since we can, we are playing some creature lands as well. We got 3 copies of Lumbering Falls, 3 copies of Shambling Vent. These are not only our backup plan for winning the game, getting in some damage with our creature lands, but they also give us a little bit of defense. Apart from making our land drops, our deck doesn't have too much going on, so we can afford to spend our mana to activate Lumbering Falls and Shambling Vents, either on offense or defense, because we're usually not doing too much more other than trying to make land drops and triggering our retreats. That said, we do have a small number of non-land, non-retreat cards. We have a single copy of Utter End, which we can use to get rid of a Planeswalker or a creature in a pinch. We have 2 copies of Dark Petition. Dark Petition, the main idea is we can use it to find a retreat, and if we have Spell Mastery, immediately play that retreat. It just so happens to be the perfect amount of mana that we can basically pay 5, search our library for a retreat to Hagra, and put it on the battlefield, assuming we have Spell Mastery. So it's basically there to find whatever retreats we need in a given situation, but it can also find our other spells. We have 2 Planner Outburst, just a Wrath, and we can, like I said, we have so many lands, we don't mind turning some into creatures sometimes, so that's kind of another backup plan to winning, is Planner Outburst. Single Languish, another Wrath, but this one's a little bit quicker, more important against aggro decks where we might not live long enough to cast our Planner Outburst. Although, to be fair, our life gained from retreats does help in the early game, help us stabilize a bit. A single Ruinous Path. Not only is Ruinous Path another one of those cards that works well with Dark Petition, because it's that 3 black mana that you can fetch it and cast it immediately with the Spell Mastery mana. But it's another way to take care of a Planeswalker or a creature, and also awaken a land if we need to. And then 4 copies of Painful Truce. We have so many colors that Painful Truce is almost always draw 3 cards. We have so many lands, 33 lands, that we really need a way to push through pockets of lands in our deck. So Painful Truce is just a way to draw 3, and we also get to gain life with our retreat, so paying 3 usually isn't the end of the world. So Painful Truce is just a really excellent draw 3 for 3 in our deck, and really essential, I think, because of how our deck is built. Anyway, the rest of the deck, sideboard-wise, we have 4 Duresses, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Negates, 2 Self-Inflicted Wounds to deal with Siege Rhinos and so on, 2 Silk Wraps to take down Jaces and other early game creatures, a Surge of Righteousness to kill Mantis Riders, another Utter End to kill Planeswalkers, and 2 Ob Nixilis Reignited, which come in mostly in control type matchups. So, as far as the odds of this working, I am not very sure. We play a lot of cards that don't do anything on their own in the retreats, They don't really have an impact on the battlefield on turn 3. And because we're trying to win with those retreats, we have to play so many lands. I'm a little concerned we're going to have these games where we just draw way too many lands and do nothing. Having the creature lands helps minimize this problem a little bit. Having some removal, so we at least have an out to our opponent playing a bunch of Hordling Outbursts and going wide, or playing a bunch of big creatures, I think is important. But I think overall our odds of winning, probably like 10 to 15%. I don't think we'll win too often. Probably our best hope is to run into decks that are not too aggressive and also cannot deal with our retreats. So I'm thinking like non-Ugin control decks, because Ugin can come down and wipe away all our retreats, but if we play against a non-Ugin control deck, I think there's a chance we can just like play retreats, make land drops, stall out the game long enough that over the course of time we'll win. We might have a shot against mid-range decks that don't have too many creatures. If our opponent can just flood the board, we really are pressured to find a Wrath. But if it's a deck that's only playing maybe 12 or 16 creatures, then we might be able to kind of stall out with Retreat to Coral Helm, find our Wrath eventually, chump a bunch with Retreat to Emeria tokens, and gain enough life with our Retreat to Hagra in Kazandu that we can kind of stabilize and win like a really long game. Regardless, we're going to play a lot of long games, I think. If we're going to win, it's going to be a long game. We really don't have any way of winning quickly. So if the game is fast, we're probably going to lose. If the game goes long, we might have a shot. So that's basically the plan, is to drag things out as much as possible and drain our opponent out with a Retreat to Hagra, or token them to death with a Retreat to Emeria. Anyway, I'm excited to try it out. I think it'll be fun, at least. It's an interesting idea, so I think it'll be fun. Anyway, make sure to check out mtggoldfish.com for the article for this Against the Odds. Decks, prices, the metagame strategy, basically anything and everything you could want related to Magic the Gathering can be found on mtggoldfish.com. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to click that subscribe button down at the bottom. It not only keeps you up to date on all the latest and greatest videos from MTG Goldfish, it also does us a favor. Thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you soon.